College hoops, Michigan at number 15, Wisconsin in a game you saw on CBS as Michael Finley having his number retired before the game. Badgers receiving a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament bracket reveal show on Saturday. You had Gard and Juwan Howard. These two would be close to each other late with all the action that happened. But as for the game, Johnny Davis here with Wisconsin up 5, putting them up 7. Capped off a 9-2 run. He had 8 first half points. And this was actually a very close game at the break. It's starting opening up in the second half, but Hunter Dickinson, a big reason why U of M was able to keep it that way going into the break. Michigan up 2 after the made free throw. Dickinson had 15 first half points and paint points. That kind of thing happened with Wisconsin 22 and Michigan 18. Back to Davis. Take over in that second half. Going up off glass, getting the guys and the bench mob feeling it. Then things starting to expand in terms of the lead. A 23-3 run with Davis scoring the last 11 points. He ended up with 25 against Michigan. Game high, and then the 17 of those 25 in the second half. And here's where things get crazy with Gard deciding to use final timeout. That's not the crazy part. Juwan Howard didn't anticipate, didn't enjoy it, wasn't enthused with the ensuing inbounds play. The press fouling Jordan Davis, which is Johnny's brother, trying to maybe put a response to that late timeout call. And then we did have some total drama. It sat at 138. That gets the over to cash. So with 1.8 left to go, dribbling it out, and then the handshake line comes. Gard and Howard exchanging it there. That's just the start. Things would get heated up. More bickering. A little bit of arm extension, but you saw there from Howard an open hand exchange with Wisconsin assistant coach Joe Krabenhoff. And then things started to get a little bit heated up between both sides, players and coaches on both teams at the Kohl Center. As for the game, Wisconsin first win against Michigan as a ranked team since 2017. The Wolverines 1-5 against ranked opponents this season, but all of the talk on social media and among fan bases and college hoops fans alike is about what happened there after the game, despite Wisconsin winning this one 77-63. Wisconsin now 16-1 when scoring 69 points or more this season. Let's hear from both head coaches. We'll hear from Juwan Howard in a second, but first, Gard on the court. The Michigan and Wisconsin game is final, a game we watched on CBS, but this is what everyone is talking about on social media between the two head coaches, Gard and Juwan Howard. This after Wisconsin not only won the game, but won so in double digits, but it was what happened late that sparked this with Juwan Howard, Moussa Diabate, Gard and his guys in the Wisconsin 77-63 win over Michigan. Replay showing again Juwan Howard there. And shortly after 14, Diabate would be throwing some punches as the Wolverines exit the building and get off the court with a loss that drops them to 14-11 on the year. All right, I've got Matt Norlander standing by, and we were going to break down Johnny Davis and the ramifications of the game, but we have to start with what happened at the end there. Matt, what more can you tell us? What'd you see there?
Well, listen, what I saw there is what everyone's going to see. This is so bad that it might become one of the 2 or 3 most dominant stories in all of American sports as we get to Monday for a number of reasons. It's the University of Michigan. It's Juwan Howard. He's one of the biggest names in all of college coaching, period, because he coaches at Michigan and because he had a long and storied college and NBA career. And this is assault. It appears to me that Howard has an open hand that makes contact with Wisconsin assistant Joe Krabenhoff, who appears to be coming to Gard's assist here. So in the postgame, and we heard what Gard said to Andrew Catalon and Steve Lapis after the game, Howard is angry that Gard called a timeout late, but Gard explained he was only calling timeout because he had backups in, and Howard was pressing Wisconsin when the game was decided. Then you have a huge scuffle here. Howard's going to get the most headlines, but look at this. We have a serious scuffle with actual closed fist punches thrown by members of both teams. There are going to be suspensions across the board. This is clearly and obviously unacceptable by Howard. This is now the second time, by the way, he has had a post-game incident with an opposing coach, opposing team. Last year, it was Mark Turgeon in Maryland in the Big Ten tournament. And now here, frustrated in defeat, Howard walks off in disgrace as his Michigan team, which was in a position to get a very important win for its bubble NCAA tournament resume. Instead, no one's going to care about the game. It's going to become absolutely how Juwan Howard failed to compose himself properly in the post-game handshake line. And then the Big Ten, as we record this in real time in the immediacy of the game, the Big Ten will put out a statement later on Sunday. It's going to review the tape. We won't have an answer on suspensions for a number of hours, if not into deep Monday or on Tuesday. But there's no doubt about it. There will be suspensions handed down. What will happen first is Michigan and Wisconsin. The onus will first fall on them to put action on any coaches or players they deem appropriate. Then the Big Ten, of course, has the authority and the power to enable further suspensions. For Juwan Howard to do that, some may even call for Juwan Howard to be fired. We are in the absolute immediacy of this. I'm not going to do that. Obviously, he needs to be suspended. If Juwan Howard was suspended for the rest of the regular season at minimum, I don't think that would be inappropriate, because what he did was inappropriate. He approached Gard. He wanted to voice his displeasure. That's fine, but it escalated to a really bad spot when he's literally lunging over people to make contact with. At that point, it's not Gard, it's Wisconsin assistant Joe Krabenhoff, and you can't have this. This is absolutely embarrassing. It's completely unacceptable for a head coach, period, in any walk of life, let alone major college athletics. And so, yeah, this is a stain. It's frankly unacceptable, and this now becomes. Frankly, it sucks how this is the reality, but it is the reality. This now becomes the biggest story coming out of the weekend in college basketball. We had the bracket reveal on Saturday. A lot of very interesting results happened across that day and into Sunday. But Juwan Howard getting physical with multiple members of Wisconsin's coaching staff is going to be the dominant story coming out of the weekend. And now we will just wait and see how long he will be suspended, how long members of Wisconsin and Michigan's programs will be suspended, and if it even gets to a point beyond that. But this is clearly one of the uglier incidents we've seen, not just this season, but in the past couple of years in men's college basketball.
They have a game, they being Michigan, with Rutgers on Wednesday. So again, everything you laid out, Matt, everything should be sorted out by the next game about who they will have available and who, of course, will not be available through the fallout of this incident.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, now at this point, we are going to see what is said post-game, and then this tape will be scrutinized, as it should be, by Michigan officials, Wisconsin officials, Big Ten officials. If I'm the conference, I'm trying to get this matter settled by the end of Sunday night. Having a history covering this kind of stuff, something tells me we're not getting an official update until Monday. Perhaps we get something sooner about Howard and any kind of length of suspension, be it definite or for sure. He's not coaching against Rutgers. There's no way that's happening. That will not be happening. Michigan, actually, its next 4 games are at home, and I believe I want to double check that in real time with you here, Tommy. So Michigan, yeah, Rutgers at home, then Illinois, then Michigan State, then Iowa. Weirdly enough, the Wolverines, for their final 5 games, will come at home at the Chrysler Center. This one was, of course, on the road there. But yeah, Juwan Howard's not going to be, I'm predicting it. I'm not stating it as fact. It seems plainly obvious. Head coaches have to be held to an elite standard, and you can never have this, ever. Can never have it, period. And I want to also be clear on this. It wasn't just Howard. Howard's the head coach. He's the most well-known person affiliated with this game, period. He is going to draw the most headlines. But as we saw in that video, as you watch it play out, other fists were thrown. That was a genuine, fight. It was, thankfully, it didn't linger for more than maybe 8-10 seconds after that. But still, there were punches thrown. Players will be suspended. It's up to the schools to see how long they want to suspend them, what kind of statement they want to make there. Oddly enough, this comes at a time when, again, Michigan is not a tournament team as far as I'm concerned right now. The loss against Wisconsin, and oh, by the way, puts them on the wrong side of the bubble. And now they might not have a couple of players available due to suspensions. How long will those suspensions be? Will the suspensions for the players match the suspensions for Juwan Howard? Will one be longer than the other? I don't know. But disturbing, obviously. Disturbing on all accounts. And again, this is the second time this has happened with Howard. Now, last year with Mark Turgeon in the Big Ten tournament wasn't as bad as this, and both of them really, you could argue, were at fault in that. But 2 times in 2 years, and we can't have it whatsoever. And so now we will wait for more official word on, again, what is now the biggest headline to come out of men's college basketball this weekend.
All right, we have not yet heard from Juwan Howard, but we did hear from Greg Gard. Let's get to what you referenced. They won the game. CBS carried it. Here is Greg Gard with Andrew Catalan and Steve Lappish after the win.
Greg, congratulations on the win. Before we talk about the performance, take us through what happened after the game in your eyes.
Well, apparently he didn't like that I called the timeout to reset the 10-second call because we only had 4 seconds to get the ball over half court. And I didn't want to put my backups. I had all my bench guys in the game. I didn't want to put them in that position of scrambling with only 4 seconds. So I took a timeout, and it got us a new 10 seconds and helped them, get organized to get the ball in. And he did not like that when he came through the handshake line. So I'll leave it at that, and the tape will show the rest.
Well, Coach, you got to be proud of the performance by your guys today. But what is it about Johnny Davis that makes him so special and such a great guy to have on your team?
Yeah, like I told you yesterday at practice, Steve, his #1 skill is his competitiveness, in terms of how he battles, how he competes. He wants to win everything he's in every day. And obviously when it comes time and you need baskets, you can put the ball in his hands. And a lot of times he makes something out of nothing.
Greg, congrats on the win. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You bet.
All right, Matt, again, that was the Greg Gard perspective of that. When you hear what he's saying, and you've been at so many games and situations where they're up big, Juwan Howard has at least one starter on the court down double digits. So, again, what do you make of Greg Gard's comments?
I mean, to me, this is ego at play here. Greg Gard's got his backups in, the walk-ons in. The game is decided. It's in Michigan's right if it wants to press, sure. There's an unspoken rule, like when the game is done, you're not pressing. But Michigan wanted to continue to press. That's fine. You can do that. Greg Gard can then call timeout if he does not want to have his players get embarrassed going up against Michigan. Again, this is not the starting 5 on the floor there. So it's in Michigan's right if it wants to press in that spot when there is no chance at winning the game. And it is in Wisconsin's right to call a timeout to reset. Again, he wanted to reset the clock so they could get the ball across the floor, not have a turnover. If you want to argue about whether or not it matters if Wisconsin had a turnover, he didn't want to embarrass his guys. And so then Howard gets angry at that. And then that's why you have this in the post-game handshake line. If you want to say we should get rid of this practice, by the way, I'm fine with it. In the pandemic era, as an oh, by the way, the handshake line has been a sometimes yes, sometimes no kind of happening thing across men's college basketball. There have been random, occasional calls over the past 5, 10, 15 years for the sport to do away with this practice and have it, some think it's kind of phony sportsmanship to end a game. You would have less of this if we never did it, that's for sure. This would not happen if there weren't handshake lines. It wouldn't, because, it is such a highly competitive sport. Michigan's trying to play just to keep itself in the NCAA tournament conversation. It's one of the most disappointing teams in the sport this season. And then when you're forcing, coaches and players to have, face-to-face encounters after 2 hours of really intense competition, occasionally this stuff, I don't want to say it shouldn't be inevitable, but it is. Like, we just get a scene like this every so often across college basketball. A lot of times this will actually happen, Tommy, at the lower levels on a game that's not on national television, so you don't really see it. But something like this happens, more than 5,000 games in a season. It's rare, but it happens, and doesn't mean there's any excuse for it. There clearly isn't. I mean, look at this. You see punches thrown on both sides here. Wisconsin and Michigan cannot have it. This is going to stain Juwan Howard's reputation for a long time. I mean, this becomes the most infamous image tied to Juwan Howard's coaching career at this point. Undeniably. He's got to be held to a higher standard. I'm sure he knows in the immediate aftermath. I'm sure he has some humongous regrets over this, as he should. You cannot do this. You have straight up assault in the post-game handshake line. Greg Gard laid it out on CBS as to why he thought that situation escalated the way it did. But then, the adults have to they got to set the tone. They have to set the example for their players. Juwan Howard made it physical. And then the players once it got heated and you've got, who knows how many bodies in that scrum, 25-30, 35-40, yeah, the Michigan players are ticked off because they just lost. And the Wisconsin players are ticked off because they just saw one of their assistant coaches be assaulted by Juwan Howard. And so now you've got this situation. What an ugly scene, black mark on men's college basketball. Big Ten's got to get this sorted out sooner than later. We shouldn't be dragging this into Monday afternoon, Monday evening without an official statement and determination on punishments there. But Juwan Howard will not be coaching in Michigan's next game. I don't think he's coaching for a minimum of 2 games, and even a 2-game suspension would be way too light. If you told me that he was not coaching again until the Big Ten tournament, I would absolutely believe it, because you just can't have that, and it's a horrible look for his university and for him.
All right. If I missed anything from the fight that you haven't chimed in yet, please do. But lastly here, we did talk about Michigan and the fallout from their loss in terms of resume, in terms of the basketball stuff. What about Wisconsin? And we heard, of course, Greg Gard talking about Johnny Davis, of course, but the Badgers moving forward. What do we think about what position they've set themselves in, both in conference and big picture for the tournament?
Certainly. Let's just shift focus to Wisconsin here and what they get the win. They were one of the top 16 teams when we saw the bracket reveal happen on Saturday afternoon on CBS. Getting this win keeps Wisconsin not just in a really good position going forward for its NCAA tournament seeding, but the Badgers, if you bring up Wisconsin's schedule of all the other teams that are in competition to get finish atop the league ledger in the Big Ten, Wisconsin's got the most, schedule that's easy to navigate. This is Michigan here. I want to note the next 4 Michigan games are at home, and then they're at Ohio State. I don't think Howard's going to be there for Rutgers. I don't think he'll be there for Illinois. I'm going to say right now, I don't think he's coaching the Michigan State game either. I think it's a minimum 3-game suspension going forward. Wisconsin specifically with the Badgers schedule. They've got home against Michigan, they've got at Minnesota after this home game against Michigan. They're at Rutgers, home to Purdue, home to Nebraska. So when you look at the other teams like Ohio State, Michigan State, Illinois, Purdue that are trying to get that 1 seed in the Big Ten, finish atop the league ledger, Wisconsin actually sets up best for this at this point. Again, that's going to get overshadowed and everything that happens at the end of this game, it was just an okay game, and then Wisconsin pulls away, blows out. Now we've got this disaster that happens in the handshake line. But in terms of pure basketball and what the result means, it actually is a good thing for Wisconsin's program. The Badgers were not expected to be anything better than maybe a 9, 10, 11 seed back in the preseason going into the NCAA tournament. Now, Wisconsin's got a real chance at being the number 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament with an easy schedule going forward. And with that, it's not unthinkable, since Wisconsin has the 2nd most quad 1 wins in the nation, Wisconsin still has a chance at a number 2 seed when we get to March. So that's the basketball angle of what we saw today, in addition to the transcendent, ugly scene that we saw in the handshake line.
All right, Matt Norlander, appreciate you jumping on, breaking it down, and of course, anticipate you and Gary Parrish talking about that on the college basketball podcast. Again, it's the fallout there at the very end with both head coaches, assistant coaches, and players in Wisconsin's double-digit win over Michigan on CBS. Make sure you download and follow both Gary and Matt on that front. Again, Matt talking about the Michigan fall. They were already going to be in trouble with this loss in terms of their tournament prospects, but now could be without key players, but would be without Juwan Howard for what Matt thinks will be multiple games, 2, probably even 3. And then on the flip side, having Wisconsin with a big win for them as they continue their trek in conference and towards March.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.